What I want to do today is I want to show you kind of how you can approach this online collaboration thing, and there's a lot to it from my perspective, so I'm going to try and help you out as best to understand the process that I go through to kind of build these online collaborations or whatever it might be, okay? Picture's clear? Good. Yeah, I think everything's working okay, but like I said, if for some reason it falls and everything falls apart, just go to the Guitar Zoom YouTube page. I'll go live directly on that page and we'll just keep going as best we can. And the reason is, if you know anything about kind of electronics, I have multiple audio drivers that are running right now, so I can go live to you and, let me show you this, and I can do this at the same time. So you can see my voice there doing the check, that thing right there. I'm going to show you kind of how I go about building my my collaborations when I do things like this. So what I did just before this live event here, I kind of built one just a little bit, but I'm going to show you the process I took. That way, I'm not taking way too much of your time and things don't go wrong. So basically, let's say me and some of my friends decided that we wanted to do You Shook Me All Night Long, okay, by AC/DC. That's what we want to do. But I don't know who's all in. I don't know if I have a drummer. I don't know if I have a bass player. You know, guitar players are pretty easy to find, but drummers aren't always easy to find. And the reason is, when you're doing collaborations like this, now please understand that as I talk about these things, you all can morph it into whatever world you want to make this work for you, okay? But let's say I wanted to do a collaboration and one person is in England and one person's in Finland and one person's in California and whatever, right? Hey everybody, I see Roy and Ron and Clayton, Tom and William and Gregory and Sam and John and Pete and Duke and Vaughn are here, and obviously a lot more. So thank you everybody for being here. And we're going to roll through this as quickly as we can. Please let me know if you run into any problems. And like I said, if for some reason we get kicked off, just head over to the YouTube Guitar Zoom page and I will continue on with our conversation as best I can. Hopefully it'll stay stable enough to get through this. So I've got for sure maybe, you know, a guitar player at the very least, right? So hey Francis. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you, let me pull up my thing here. So let's say I'm going to start building a track for everybody to play along with. Now, I take this responsibility because I'm the one that's reaching out to everybody else. So I have to provide them with what is commonly referred to as a musical bed. I need to give them something to play along with, right? Whether it's bass, drums, click track, guitar, whatever it might be, I need to provide them with something that they can follow and then they can listen to and record their parts, right? Now, the game plan is ultimately at the end here is to be able to do audio and video, and we'll get to that. But the first thing I need to do is find my players. So let's say I found a guitar player. That's what I have right now. It's just another guitar player that wants to jam with me. Okay? So what I do then, hey everybody. So what I do then is, I'm going to switch over here. Okay? Now, what you see here is a program called Guitar Pro, and you might use a different program or something like that, but I found a Guitar Pro version of You Shook Me All Night Long. Okay, so with this version, I can listen to it. You know, it's going to give me the notation, and you know, it's going to sound like kind of like MIDI and all that sort of thing. But you know, it's a great learning tool and all that sort of thing. But here's what I do, and if it's a little blurry, you're just going to have to deal with it as best you can. Again, you don't need to really be able to see the tab or anything, so don't worry about that. Okay, but what I do is, down on the bottom here, you're gonna, if as best you can, again, you're gonna see it says lead, rhythm, bass, and drums. Okay, let me try and make that as big as I can so you can kind of see that. Okay, so it says lead, rhythm, bass, and drums right there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the bass section, and I'm gonna solo up that bass section. Okay? I'm going to solo up that bass section. That's all I'm doing is soloing up the bass section. So when I play it, you're just going to hear the bass. Now, I'm not going to play it because I'm scared that my audio driver is going to crash. So I'm not going to play it, but I'm soloing up that bass section. Then what I do is I go up to File, okay, and there they are. And I go to Export, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this as audio. So I go to audio, this pops up, And I could save it as an MP3, it's fine. I'm just saving this bass track as a you know, a test track or whatever to help me to play through this song. So, you know, I can choose to export. If there was only a section of the song, I could do that, or if I wanted multiple parts, but I just want the bass part. So I'm just gonna leave this exactly as it is and hit export. And when it does that, it's gonna give me an audio track of the bass part, which you can hear right here. This is the bass track from the Guitar Pro. Now all I did was normalize it. I just went here and hit normalize and made the file, you know, so it's as big as it is. There's my bass part right there. I can see it. Now I'm going to turn it down a little bit so it's not killing you over there, but... Okay, so again, it's not a perfect bass part, but you know, it's a MIDI that's been converted to audio through my Guitar Pro program, okay? So then what I do is I go to my drums and I solo up my drums instead. When you go back, you would either do the exact same thing to pull up your drums, or what I do is a little more complicating because I want more control over those drums. So what I do, and again, you could just go to audio and do the same thing. If that's all you had, that would be just fine, okay? But what I do is I go to MIDI and I export the drums as a MIDI track. And then I import the drums into here via MIDI. So what you're looking at right here is the drum track as MIDI. Now I'm using Studio One, but you could use anything you want, okay? But I've pulled the drums in MIDI, and the reason I do that is I use a program called Easy Drummer. Let me pull that over so you can see it here. So there's Easy Drummer right there. And what I do is I pull it in, and so now it's MIDI, but I can mess with the sound of the drums. I can change, you know, whatever drums I want here. And then, so when I play it, there's the drums. You see? So I could change the snare or the kick, or, you know, I can change the sound. So it makes me be able to make that drum track sound a little more realistic, okay? Now, I might not need this drum track. Like, I might actually find a drummer to play, but for now, if my bass player or my other guitar player needs something to play along with, so I pull in this drum track, and you'd either pull it in as MIDI, or you'd pull it in as audio. My bass, I could pull that in as MIDI too, but it's just easier for me to pull it in as audio. So that's all I'm doing there, okay? So I pull that in as audio, and now I've got these two parts. Now, what I did after that is I created this click track. Okay, so if we just listen to the click track here, it's going to sound like a click track. That's all. Because I know the song is 126 beats because it said it right here in my Guitar Pro. So before I pull all this in, I put my tempo at 126, I create a click track, and again, in whatever order, I create this drum track, and I create this bass track. So now I've got all three of these. You see? So I've got all of those sitting right there. The click track serves two purposes for me. Number one, obviously I need to know when to start, right? So if I start playing this thing, and I do this, and I'm going to play that. But I need a click track so I know when to come in, right? So that's what I've done now, is I've built this click track that I can use to help me know when to play. So maybe what I want to do, let me go back. Maybe what I want to do at this point is I want to take this click track, and I don't want to click through the whole thing because I don't really need click through the whole thing. I just need click long enough to when the drums kick in so I can play along with that. Are you kind of all following me so far? I'm just building a bed for my other musicians to play along with. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to record the guitar part. Now, right now what I'm doing is I'm using the Kemper to do my recording. Sometimes I use my Hughes and Kettner, sometimes I use the Kemper, you know, whatever it might be. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to start recording my guitar part. So I'm going to keep it on this. You don't really need to watch me playing this. I'm going to keep it on the screen here so you can see this. And again, hopefully my audio driver doesn't fail here. So here we go. I'm going to press play and record, and we're going to go. So now I got this guitar part right here. Okay? So again, I'm building a bed for the other guitar players. Or excuse me, the other musicians that are going to jam with me. Okay? So I play this guitar part all the way through, and, you know, maybe I record more guitar parts, you know, because obviously a lot of times with these songs, you might have multiple guitar parts, right? Now, I don't know what the other guitar player wants to play. So, but I am kind of an overachiever. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll record all the guitar parts, you know, different, like I'm doing right now, I'll record all the guitar parts. And then let's say the guitar player says, hey, I'm going to play the first solo, or I'm going to play the second rhythm part, and I'm going to do the first solo, or whatever it might be, right? So when I send this track to that person, I'm going to take those parts out. I'm going to cut them out, right? Or I'm not going to send them to them with those guitar parts, okay? And then what they're going to do is they're going to play along with it. Now, again, some of this is just going to be me talking. It's not going to be my screen. So if I send this particular track that I'm making right now to another guitar player, okay, I might leave all of this stuff in there, right? Maybe not the click track, because they might not need that, unless they're playing the intro or something, then I might leave the beginning of that click track. So then what that other guitar player is going to do is listen to the song in headphones and play and record like I'm showing you right now. That way, and I'll get to another thought in a second, that way I'm just going to get their guitar track. I don't want their guitar track with all of my stuff on there. All I want is their guitar track, however they can send it to me. So if they can do what I'm doing right now, they can just record their guitar track and just send me back their track, and that's it. And I just pull it in here, and I stick it in there, maybe tweak the EQ a little bit or whatever, and I'm done. But not everybody has that capability. Sometimes people only have maybe an iPhone, right? Or something to record their guitar parts with, whatever it might be. So they don't have the ability to maybe do their recording with a software like this. So what they might do is send me their iPhone video of them playing along, right? So this is where the headphones become very important, because I don't want them to send me audio on their iPhone of both the track and them playing, because I can't use that. It's just going to turn into mud. So if they can listen to it here and record themselves playing, you know, so they're listening to the song and they're recording their amp or whatever, right? And so their iPhone or whatever, a camera or whatever they're using is just picking up them going, right? So there's nothing else that they're hearing. Then they send me that video file, whether it's an iPhone video file or a camera video file or whatever it is they send me. Okay? And what I do then is I extract the audio off of that video file. And as a matter of fact, Studio One does that automatically. I can pull in a video file right into Studio One and just drop it. And it'll tell me, there's a little thing on the bottom that says, do you want to extract? I click on that and it says, do you want to extract the audio? So I can just pull the audio in, shut off the video because I don't want to waste my computer resources, and now I've got their audio from their iPhone. So they don't need to have a professional setup or anything. They might just use a phone and it's fine. Okay, so now I've got their audio. I would do the same thing with a bass player, right? So now let's say it's going to go to a bass player next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this, okay? And I probably have maybe one or two of these files now. Do I run this software through the red box on the HK? I do. That's exactly what I do. I run right out of the red box in the Hughes & Kettner, right into my audio interface, and that's what I would be recording with. That's exactly right, Darren. So I might have two guitar tracks here. One that I label Steve guitar, right? And then one that I label Darren guitar, right? So I pulled Darren's guitar track in here, and now I've got my guitar and Darren's guitar track. So I've got both of our tracks. So now I've got to send this to the bass player. Well, the bass player doesn't want to hear the bass parts. So I would mute that bass part, and obviously now the bass is gone, right? So now I didn't delete the bass part because I might still need that. I might need it to send to the drummer or whoever's coming next. So I don't want to delete it. I just want to mute it. So now I'm going to send that mix of me, maybe Darren, the drum track that I have. I'm going to send all that to the bass player, and the bass player is going to do the same thing. Either the bass player is going to record themselves into a DAW, a digital audio workstation like I'm using, and then just send me their track. All I need is their bass track. I don't need all my tracks back, right? So I send them a mix, right? I'm going to take what you're hearing right now and mix it down without the bass, send it to the bass player. So there's drums, there's a click track, whatever the bass player needs. And then they're going to send me back their bass part, and I'm just going to plop it right in there. So now I got their bass part. Okay? Now the drummer comes up. I actually have a drummer that I'm working with. So what I would do with that drummer is I would do the same thing I was just showing you, except obviously then I would want to put the drums back in, or the bass, excuse me. So let's label this bass so I know what I'm doing here. So I would take the drums out, but I need to give them a click track all the way through, because that drummer needs to listen to that click track all the way through. Otherwise, they're going to just hear this. And not that they couldn't play along, but drummers like to hear something. Now, if you do use Studio One, and I'm not telling you to use Studio One, you can use whatever you want. I see Vaughn is using Adobe Audition, which I used to use. It doesn't matter, anything you want. But what I love about Studio One is if I go to the metronome here and I click on the little wrench, it pops this up. And what I can do is, if you can see that, I know it's kind of small probably on your screen, but there's a little square in the upper right-hand corner that says render. And it'll actually render me a click track. It'll create a click track for me just by clicking on that render button, which is just so convenient. And then all I have to do is resize the click track. Maybe I just use it to start the song, or now I'm going to send it to the drummer, so I make it, the full size of the song. So now the drummer hears me and the bass player and the click track. And so the drummer plays along with me and the bass player, or the bass part, and the click track, right? And the other guitar player, if Darren's the other guitar player, he can hear all of that. I can send him a mix of all of that. I'm just pulling out the drums, if that makes sense. So by the time this is all done, the other guitar player, Darren, has sent me his guitar part. I pulled it in there. Clayt has sent me his bass part, and I put it in there. Kipper has sent me the drum part, and I put it in there. Okay, now I mix all this together and master it as best I can. I'm not an engineer guru, but I do okay. Okay, so I mix it all together and set the levels and everything like that. And now the audio is done. And maybe that's all we're gonna do. Okay? And then what we're gonna do is, now if we wanted to, now there's the video side of things. So let me explain that to you just for a little bit here. So on the video side of things, you have two options. And one might seem cheesy to you, but you're going to understand why it's really important in just a second, okay? When you're recording video, either you're going to record your audio and your video at the same time. Now, if you were just recording on an iPhone, this would be very easy to do because you would probably record your audio and video at the same time anyway. But when you're trying to do more professional sounding recording, that's when you're trying to use like a DAW or something, right? Okay? So here's the choices. I might record my guitar parts first because I'm really trying to focus on playing everything right and making sure everything's working and all that kind of stuff, right? Darren says he's an air guitar master. So I might record my guitar parts or drum parts or bass parts first. Then I go back and I pretend like I'm playing the guitar parts. Now, please understand, you're not faking, like you just literally played the guitar parts, but you recorded the guitar first to make sure that you did it right. Because I'm telling you, and I do this all the time, but pressing play on your recording on your DAW and then pressing record on your videos and then doing everything flawlessly and not making a mistake anywhere and still having the video look good and everything like that is harder than you think. So what some people like to do is they'll record their audio first, then they'll go back and record a video of them playing along with the audio they just played. Those are your two choices. Either you do them both in real time, Or you do the audio first and then you go back and play along with your audio with your video. And then that person would send me their video file, right? However they want to do it. Now, needless to say, if I get audio and video that are linked together through the speaker on a video camera or on an iPhone or something like that, it's not ideal. And it's not going to sound great. But you can work with it. So the best way to do this is obviously to record them separately, to record your audio into some sort of, like lip syncing really is what it is. Because if you think about it now, I just recorded my intro, right? And now I would click on my video and I would go like this. No, I'm not. My volume's off, but I just played this. So I know what I did. It's not cheating because I just played that. Like, that was me. And now I'm just playing along with me, right? But I'm doing it from a production standpoint because I need a video and I need an audio. Your only other choice is to try and do them both at the same time, which is how I normally do it, is I do them both at the same time. Because my vibratos and things are always a little different and things like that, so I like to record them at the same time. But I've done this 850,000 times. Like my buddy in Finland that I'm going to get, or whoever it might be, my buddy in California that I'm going to get to do this, he may never sit in front of a camera. And he's already uncomfortable being in front of a camera the way it is, let alone trying to record here and sit here and the lights are right and all this stuff. And he's like, dude, that's too much crap going on at once. And I'm like, you don't have to do it all at once. Send me the audio and then play along with yourself. You know what I mean? So it's completely legitimate because this is the way it has to be done. I mean, you only have those two choices. If you think to yourself, well, I wouldn't want to do that, then don't do it. Then you got to do it the hard way like I do it, okay? But you've got to be trained on that because it is a lot of work. So, you know, you're trying to make sure you're sitting right and the camera angle's right, and then the other thing is if for some reason there's ever any glitches in your recording stuff or your computer or anything like that, and then something goes wrong, then you got to start all over again. Or you forgot to push record. I mean, there's a million things that can happen, and believe me, I've been through every one of them a billion times doing this, but that's how I do my recordings. Then once I get all my video back, whether they're separate video files, whether it's video and audio together, whatever, they send me their files, and then I take the audio, do what I want, take the videos, and now with the videos, I need to make a video with it. Now, if there's only 2 or 3 people, it's very easy to get a piece of video editing software. I use DaVinci Resolve, which is free, which is absolutely amazing to me. It's made by Blackmagic, but it's an amazing piece of video editing software, and it's free. Now, they do have a paid version, but it has way more than I would ever need. I've always loved Adobe Premiere, but I don't have the learning curve for Adobe Premiere. And I don't want to spend enough time learning it. As much as I would love to learn Adobe Premiere, I don't want to take extra time out of my life to start another frickin' project. So I don't use Adobe Premiere as much as I really want to, if you can tell. So I used DaVinci Resolve, and it works great. And there are a million other things out there that you can use to do video editing. Nowadays, there's a lot of really great stuff. It's called, here, let me type it in. So what I'm using for recording is Studio One. And we're at 4.5 at this point, and it's by Presonus. And then I use DaVinci Resolve for video editing. Now, there's a lot of great ones. I'm not telling you to buy either one of these. I'm just telling you there's just a lot of great stuff out there, and they're all really good. So when I need really, really good video editing, I don't have the time to spend, 3, 4, 5 hours doing proper video editing if I've got a full band and things like that. So then I hire somebody out. Like I've got a buddy here in Fargo. I don't know if anybody saw the Detroit Rock City one where the singer Jack actually recorded his voice in the car when he was driving around. He recorded it on his iPhone in the car. So he was listening to headphones, listening to the song that I sent him, just like I'm showing you, of Detroit Rock City. And then he recorded the video and audio onto his iPhone and sent me that. So that's what I used. And then the bass player did the video audio at the same time. Tommy from EMG did the video and audio at the same time. And they sent me their stuff. But I wanted that to be really good because those are all guys that I just love. Oh yeah, Michael says, I just got my Spark amp and it had Studio One included. I love Studio One. It's pretty easy to use. So anyway, when I got all these files, I have a local guy by the name of Jesse that does my photo shoots, my pro video editing, things like that. And I wanted this one to be good, and I knew that my editing wasn't what I wanted. So I paid him to do the video editing. And even a professional, it took him a number of hours to get that video made, but it looks great and it's fun. Again, it's fun for people to watch. It's fun for the guys who were involved. You know, it's just a cool thing. But I wouldn't do that for every video, every collaboration that I do, because I'd be broke, right? So some of them, if it's a smaller project, like I did one for Blitzkrieg Bop, where my daughter was dancing and I was playing, and a buddy of mine recorded the bass and vocal parts. That didn't need a big professional video editing, so I didn't hire anybody. I just used DaVinci Resolve, pulled them up on the screen, rendered it, and I was good. Okay? So let me see what we got here. What software do you use to create chord progressions for backing tracks sound like organ? Well, you usually want some sort of a plugin that makes synth-style sounds. And for me, there's one built into Studio One that I use for stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, sometime in the near future here, I got a hold of the guys from Jamstick, if you know what Jamstick is, and we're going to get together. They're actually from Minneapolis, and so I want to try out a Jamstick for synth stuff, and someday I'll do a lesson on that too, but with COVID and stuff, I can't visit them anyway. But, you know, so if you're a guitar player, it's nice to have a product like that where you can play, and you can play piano parts or organ parts or whatever right on your guitar. But that will be for another discussion down the road once this COVID stuff is over, Sam. So, but we'll get into that. But there is a software built into Studio One that I use. Vaughn says, one time I recorded and nailed a song only to find out that I'd cut out my head. Yeah, I re-recorded and afterward, the good video, good solo. Yeah, that's the thing is it's a lot to think about at once if you've never done it before. And it might not seem like it, but it is. Especially if you're trying to do professional recording, professional video, all that at once. You know, you got to get really good at it. Set yourself up with a good 4 or 8 or 16 count click, so you got time to press record, get ready, and do your thing, and then hopefully you don't make a mistake for 3.5 minutes. Or you don't care, right? And that's fine too. So, Guitars for Vets says, good timing for this live class. I'm working on recording now. Perfect. That's why I wanted to do this. I had so many people request on how I do this. And so I wanted to explain to you the process. The hardest part is the drums, right? Sitting there programming drums, and it's not that I haven't done it before. I've done it many times, but programming drums really sucks. It's very time consuming. So what I started doing was going out on the internet and trying to search for a MIDI drum, you know, file of whatever song I was looking for. Well, oftentimes it's really hard to find those because it might not be a song that's very popular, but I thought, man, if I can go to Ultimate Guitar and find a Guitar Pro file, okay, and it has drums, because they don't always have drums either. But if I find one that has drums, I could pull that drum out via MIDI or audio, if that's what you need, and just use that. And it's good enough for fun, right? Or maybe, again, it's just a reference for other people, and then when my drummer comes in, I'm going to strike that anyway and put in a real drum thing. So, let's see here. I have Studio Q on my other computer. Studio Q. I'm not sure what Studio Q is. Maybe you meant Studio One. Yeah, you must have meant Studio One. I'm looking at my keyboard. One's right above Q. I just installed a new computer for my recording this weekend. Awesome, Randolph. This is fun stuff, and everybody should be doing it. Have fun with this stuff. Jeff says, when you bring your drums in as MIDI, do you just open Easy Drummer? What I do, Jeff, is I pull that MIDI file. I have in Studio One, I have a template that I've built, and one of the tracks is an Easy Drummer track that's already ready to go. So as soon as I open Studio One, I click on that, and it opens up. You know, I can run my Kemper, I can run my Hughes and Kettner. There's tracks for everything in there, and one of the tracks is Easy Drummer. So then what I do is I take that MIDI file and I just drag it into the Easy Drummer track, right? And then once it's in there, then I pull up Easy Drummer and just find whichever one works best. Now let me show you this though, since you're asking, Jeff. Because what I have found is with Easy Drummer, I'm going to show you this. I'm actually going to play this for you, Jeff, so you can hear this, okay? So I'm going to solo up the drum track here. Now listen to this. It's going to take a minute here, and again, hopefully nothing crashes. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, hopefully you can hear that okay. Looks like you can. Okay, now watch this. I'm going to change the drums. I'm going to choose Easy Drummer Modern. Listen to it now. Okay, do you hear how all of a sudden it kind of goes away? Like it gets lost in the mix? So, and it's not that you couldn't tweak it. I mean, you could definitely go through and go, oh, sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button. Sorry about that. You know, and adjust it as needed. I could readjust it. But what I found is that just for a reference, this drum kit from hell, the basic one, almost always works great. If I pull up drum kit from hell, whoops, I keep hitting the wrong button there. Sorry about that. So now, see, it's real prominent. You can hear it really well. Now, it's not really AC/DC. Obviously, it doesn't really sound like an AC/DC drum kit, but it's, you know, you can definitely hear it. Now, I could change, you know, I could go to like a sonar and that's going to lighten it up a little bit, right? So I could change the drum kit if I wanted to something else or something like that, you know? But again, the point is that what I have found in my journey of trying to do this is that drum kit from hell is just my default to go to because it's closer to being audible for all the things, whether there's cymbals, hi-hat, you know, kick, snare, all those things. It's just easier to hear everything. So that's what I use as my default is drum kit from hell. And then I can go in and change the drums to make it sound however I want it to sound. So that's what I use. But again, you know, you might use something else. Let's see here. Is the Studio One Prime robust enough, or do you think an upgrade is needed? Well, to be honest with you, buddy, I don't know because I've never used Studio Prime. I just went right with Studio Pro. I used to be a Cubase user for many, many years, and then I just wound up having too many issues with Cubase. Now, a lot of my friends use Cubase. I'm a Windows guy, so I don't use what do you Mac users use? Is it usually Logic that you use? I mean, there's GarageBand, but what's the step up? Is it Logic? I think it's Logic. So that's not an option for me being a Windows guy. So Cubase was, you know, I've been using Cubase for 15 years, 20 years. And there just wasn't that many other options for Windows users. Nowadays, there's, you know, Reaper, Pro Tools, thank you, yeah, there you go. Thank you, Sam. In Pro Tools, I just never went the Pro Tools way. So I used Cubase, and then I wound up using Mixcraft, which was really cool. I used Reaper, which was cool. But ultimately, I just settled on Studio One, and like I was telling you about Adobe Premiere, I just have to choose something and then sink my teeth into it and spend my whole time trying to learn it. And if I have 7 of them, the problem is I'm all over the place, and then I'm not practicing and I'm not doing anything productive. So will all this work on Reaper? It absolutely will work on Reaper. Exactly the same way we're doing it right now. Exactly the same way. So, you know, if you wanted to do the drums the way I'm doing them, you'd want to pull up Easy Drummer first and then pull in your MIDI track to Easy Drummer. If you don't have Easy Drummer or anything like that, an Easy Drummer, let me type that in just so you know too here. Easy Drummer, and it's by Toontrack, which is just a lot of fun. Again, most of us don't have a readily available drummer, and I've just found Easy Drummer to just be a godsend. So that's what I use. But if you didn't have anything like that, you could have saved out of Guitar Pro, you could have saved your drums as an audio file, not a MIDI file, an audio file. And just use that and it'll be, I'm sure it'll be fine. You know, it'll probably sound just fine. Let's see here. I want to see if, okay, so White Rabbit says, have you used GarageBand? Did you like it? I used GarageBand shortly when I had a Mac laptop, but I wound up giving my Mac laptop to my daughter when she went to college, and then I bought another Windows laptop, just a cheap Windows laptop, but I can still do a lot of the same stuff I'm showing you right now. I just can't have as many, things running at the same time, as many files, as many plugins, things like that as I can. Right now I'm in my regular studio and my computer is much more powerful here. Let's see here. So I think I got that. Will it work on Reaper? I mentioned that, Jeff. Let's see here. Randolph says, I was got Studio Pro last week. I was using Acid Pro. Yeah, Studio Pro is just really great from a guitar player's perspective of, you know, the big thing for me is and I'll get to all of your comments and stuff too, but the biggest thing for me is when I come into my studio and I want to do something, whether it's video, whether it's a lesson, whether it's a song I'm writing, whether it's a jam, a collaboration, I just want to go. I don't want to spend 45 minutes setting stuff up because by that time I want a sandwich or a slice of pizza and the mood is shot anyway. So it's very important that when I get in my studio and I turn on my lights and I turn on my cameras, and my cameras are ready to go. They're you know, all my stuff is ready to go. My DAW is the same, okay? I want to open it and go. I don't want to open it and build stuff. So whether you use Reaper, whether you use Studio One, it doesn't matter what you do, okay? Save it as a template. So the next time you open it, you've got your drums or your bass or your guitar or whatever. And yes, it's just as easy as creating a new, you know, whatever. But, you know, a new track, right? But for me, I just want it all there. So all I have to do is, well, let me show you. So all I have to do, let me get this out of the way, is arm my center track. Now it's called Steve Guitar right now because I switched it, but I would arm that and record. And then this would have been called guitar left. This would have been called guitar right. Now you can see on all three of those, they're all going into the same channel on my audio interface. Look at them, see? So, but it's just easier for me to have them all ready to go. Like this would have said, whoops, sorry, bud. Give me a second here. Guitar center. This would have said guitar left. And this is how it would open, right? So when I'm recording all this stuff, you know, I might go here, and now I'm going to record a second guitar part, right? So, you know, you're only going to hear so much over YouTube with compression and all that stuff, but that's how I would record all these parts, right? And so you can understand that if I was trying to record all of this with the video running at the same time, it might get really chaotic and I wind up with 14 video files. Like if I'm just plugging in a little something, I don't want to have the camera running every single time. I mean, you just got to figure out what works for you so you don't make yourself crazy with this stuff. Now, all of these little, you know, things I'm throwing on now, this over-the-top stuff, I didn't need those really to send to my bass player or my guitar player or the drummer, right? I didn't need all this stuff. They don't need that to lay down their parts. But I might add these afterwards, so I have these multiple parts. So a lot of times when I record songs, I like to have, you know, like a center guitar, and then I'll usually have a couple that are panned out or maybe hard panned or whatever. And normally, I would record with different sounds. Like right now I haven't changed my sound of my Kemper, but I might record one track with my Hughes and Kettner. I might record one track with my Kemper at a certain setting and record another track with a plug-in, or record another track with a different Kemper setting or something. So they all sound vastly different. And then sonically, when you're listening to it through your stereo, you go, holy crap, that sounds really cool. You see? So I don't use the same setting for everything. And if I do use, let's say, like right now I'm using a JCM 800 for these sort of Angus Young, Malcolm Young inspired tones. What I would definitely do, even if I recorded them all with the same tone, I would go back and I would re-EQ them just a little different from each other. Not anything dramatic, maybe just a little bit of high end or a little bit more mid, or pull the mid just a little bit in one, just so they all, again, sonically kind of fit together and they're not stepping over each other with the exact same frequency, right? If I just tweak it a little bit, it sounds really, really cool. Let's see here. Let me go back to these here and see what we've got. Got it. I have Easy Drummer. Awesome. Use the Presonus 2.6 for my audio interface. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I use the Steinberg stuff because I've been using Steinberg for a long time, but the Presonus stuff, I wouldn't. Again, they're all good, but I would absolutely look at getting a Presonus audio interface. Absolutely. Francis says, have you heard of Amped Roots? And I have. I actually have it on here. Right now I have it. Fluff has some really good tones. Now, what Francis is talking about is what we call a plug-in. So with a plug-in, what I do is I run direct into my audio interface, not into an amp like I'm doing right now. I run directly into the audio interface. So I'm just getting my ugly guitar tone with nothing else. And then you run a plug-in, a VST it's called. You run a plug-in that does an amp simulation. So there's stuff like Amplitude. There's Guitar Rig. Obviously, there's Positive Grid, which is stuff I use a lot. I love the Positive Grid stuff. So Amplitude, Guitar Rig 5 is another really good one. Positive Grid has gosh, why am I forgetting the name? Somebody help me here. I just totally forgot what it is. Oh, sorry, Bias Amp, and then they also have one called Bias Effects. And they're different from each other, but they're both great. Amplitude is awesome, I'm telling you. And then, like Francis is talking about, there's one called Amped Roots, which you can see up there, but which is a really new one. But then there's stuff like Neural... What is it called again? Neural... DSP, there it is. Neural DSP has got some incredible stuff. If you're into stuff like Tobin Abasi, Plini, you know, Nolly, if you know who those players are, Neural SP has some great stuff. Tone Bridge, yeah. See, there's a ton of them out there. So there's lots of different things that you can use. So for me, you know, my kind of go-to is for sure Amplitude. I love Amplitude, Positive Grid. But again, I haven't used any that I don't like. Okay, they're all good. So it's a great way of, if you don't have all this stuff, you don't have a Kemper, you don't have a Hughes and Kettner, you don't have all that stuff, you can literally just run your guitar right into your audio interface, buy one of those amp simulators for whatever, 50 bucks, 100 bucks, whatever it might be, and boom, you've got yourself some killer tones. Amplitude has just a wide variety of stuff. Positive Grid has a cloud that you can go in and get stuff, and there's just all kinds of different ways that you can do this. So again, I'm not yay or naying any brand, or they're all fine. It's just something you got to explore. But if that makes sense, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today and how this works. So I'm making the bed, which is the song, the rhythm section of the song, whatever is necessary. Okay, Empire in Studio One is perfectly fine. Again, anything that you have. What's going to happen, Thomas, is at some point the bug is going to bite you, and then that's when you want, wow, I wish I had these effects, or I wish I had a 5150, or I wish I had, and then that's when you wind up like me and you own different stuff. You know, for the longest time, I was a big advocate for plugins, and don't get me wrong, I still love plugins. But since the Hughes and Kettner, since the Kemper, some of these things, I've gone back to, I make the sound out here and then send it into it. But what's beautiful about plugins is you might, if you run your guitar directly into your audio interface and you dial in a tone, and then you record all your parts, and then you go back and go, I don't really like that tone as much as I thought I did. Well, you can switch it. That's the beautiful thing about a plugin is you can change the plugin to whatever you want, and the signal is still just plain old guitar tone running in there. Where if I record with my Kemper or record with my, you know, Hughes and Kettner or something, I don't have that luxury. Once I've recorded it, it's the tone that I want. And I'm stuck with it. So plugins are great for that kind of stuff. You know, but then you might want whatever, delay and reverb and all these different things. And of course you can add those with more plugins, but the more plugins you use in your DAW, the more your computer is going to get bogged down. And it depends on how much memory you've got and that sort of thing. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. Jeff says, how hard is it to sync up the video tracks? Well, that's the tough part, okay? The tough part is syncing up all the video tracks. Now, here's my secret, Jeff. And it's not that it doesn't come without a cost, okay? But since I'm the one making the bed of all of these tracks, and I send it to the bass player, and I send it to the drummer, and I send it to the guitar player, they're recording their parts with my track, right? So they're going to send me back those audio files. And they're going to sync just fine to my audio because they're playing along with what I sent them. I might have to shift it a little bit, you know, line it up, but I'm talking audio now. So once it's done, I've got all these random video files of them playing drums or bass or guitar or keys or whatever that are now in my master mix. Listen very carefully because this is my wonderful secret, this time saving. So now their audio that's on their videos is now in my master track. So I'm going to show you this. And again, hope to God that nothing crashes. Maybe I won't show you because I'm scared it's going to crash. I have a program called Pluralize. Now, Pluralize is not cheap, but I do video for a living. So time is absolutely crucial for me. Okay? So don't judge me on this. Okay? I use Pluralize, and what happens is with Pluralize, it is a godsend for video editing, because what I do is I pull in my master audio that has me and everybody else on it, and then I pull in their video files. So the drummer's video file goes in, which still has the original drum audio on it, right? And then I pull in the bass, and then I pull in the guitar, and I hit sync, and Pluralize syncs it all up. It looks at it, it sees it, it hears it, it's amazing, but it's like $400 or something like that. But what would take me an hour to do, it does in about 5 seconds. And it syncs it all up. And then once it's synced it, what you can do is you can export all those files as a timeline. Now the timeline has to go into like Final Cut? Final Cut, that's what it is. You can export that timeline as a Final Cut. You can export it as a Premiere Pro. DaVinci Resolve sees those timelines. So I save that, I pull it into DaVinci Resolve, and it's already synced up. So I saved myself, it syncs the audio and the video because it sees the master video, Sam, it sees the master video, and then I've got all these, the master audio, excuse me, and then it sees all these video files. So when I hit sync, it syncs it all up to this master audio because all of their audio is on that master audio, right? So it syncs up all their files. So it's all sitting there, all synced, ready to go. And then I just save that timeline and pull it into DaVinci Resolve, and it's all synced up, ready to go. I don't have to do anything. Now, if you don't have DaVinci Resolve, okay, well, I can't because I don't have all the video files. I don't have everything right now. But let's say you didn't have DaVinci Resolve, you didn't have Adobe Premiere, you didn't have Final Cut, you just had some other random kind of video editing, right? What you can do is you can save all those files, the video files and the audio files that are in Pluralize, you can save them as video files, just video files. And what it does is it takes the video that was on all the, sorry, I got to slow down. It takes the audio that was on all those video files, and it takes that master audio and it plops it onto all your video files. So now all your video files have the exact same audio that your master audio had. So when you pull it into whatever video editing software you have, it's really easy to edit because all you got to do is listen to it, especially if it has a click at the beginning. You just line them all up, and now everything's done for you. So there's two different ways that you can do it. Pluralize is strictly for video. So it's a video syncing tool. That's what it's for. It's a video syncing tool. It's not for audio. My audio is all done in my DAW. My audio is all, I adjust my bass parts and tweak everything. You know, so if I get the bass part back from the bass player and I pull it in here and it's not signed or lined up, it's not hard for me to figure out, you know, to line it up. You know, I could just pull that audio file back and forth and kind of sync it up. And that, for me anyway, it takes me no time to sync up audio files. That's very easy. It's 4 or 5 or 6 video files that sucks to try and sync everything. So with Pluralize, it does all the work for me. So if that makes sense, again, Pluralize is not for everybody. First of all, it's expensive. And second of all, you really do have to have some knowledge of video before you start messing with it. I mean, if you only have 2 video files, you don't really need to worry about Pluralize. Just pull them into whatever video editing software you have, you know, and kind of line them up. And when the singer starts singing, you line it up, you know, or whatever. And it's really not that bad. And again, video editing, you can just have 2 windows open or however you want to do it in your video editing. But please understand that everything I'm talking about requires a learning curve, right? So that's why I wanted to talk about this today with you. You know, I'd love for these live sessions to be some sort of topic where I can help you with different things like this when these things come up. But anyway, that's if that makes sense. It looks like most of you kind of get what I'm saying about that. Sam says, right, but do you have to sync them together with each other? Well, the Pluralize would sync all of the audio files to the video files because it's seeing audio on the video files. And it's hearing the audio on those video files in my master audio, right? Because I pulled them all in. So the bass player's video file has his bass part on it, but his bass part is also in my master track, right? So it's hearing both of those. So it's very easy for Pluralize to sync them up because it's hearing all of it from different places and it lines it right up. But that's all Pluralize does is it's a video syncing tool. Okay, and it syncs to the audio. That's what it does. It's very expensive, so it's not something that you need if you're just trying to sync maybe 2 iPhone videos or something like that. That's not that hard to just kind of sync them together. But when you have a large project with many video files, it becomes really frustrating. Okay? Sam says, easiest to sync to the waveform if you can. And that's what Pluralize does, is it syncs everything to the waveform. It just does it all for you. So instead of you having to do it all yourself, and again, there's nothing wrong with it if you want to do it all yourself. For me, it's a waste of my time. I spent that money a long time ago for Pluralize, and it has saved me hours, hundreds of hours of time in trying to sync things together. I don't even do it. I just give it to Pluralize. 10 seconds later, it spits out a thing for me, and I'm done. So it was some of the best money I've ever spent, you know, aside from some of the things we're talking about tonight. Okay, cool. So Sam says, right, got that, but syncing each part with each other? Yeah, and again, if it doesn't make sense to you, Sam, I wouldn't even worry about something like Pluralize until you figured out, like, don't try and sync, don't take on, like, if you've never really done this sort of thing, don't try and take on a project with 6 video parts and then try and do it all at once. Like, because you've still got to learn your video editing software. You got to learn how it works. You got to learn how the audio software, like whatever these things are, and Sam, you can learn it just like anybody else can, but I'm saying don't make such a massive learning curve with all this stuff that it's overwhelming. Just start with just something basic. So if that makes sense. So, you know, pulling in my video file and pulling in an audio, hell, I can just use Camtasia for that, right? I mean, I use Camtasia a lot if I'm making something for YouTube and I just pull in a single video file and a single audio file, I can do something easy like Camtasia and I'm done. You know, add a fade in, fade out, I'm golden. But it's when I start getting into 4 or 5 or 6 video files, Camtasia is not going to cut it. It's just going to lag down, where that's when I would go to a DaVinci Resolve or an Adobe Premiere or something like that to try and sync all that up. Well, my secret weapon for that is Pluralize, which syncs it all for me, and then I just pull that into DaVinci or into Adobe, and I'm done with that. So hopefully that makes sense. So anyway, a lot of information, really good stuff. I hope this helps you. Yeah, a good tool will pay for itself. I'm telling you, Pluralize was my biggest find. Now, there are some other companies that make things similar to Pluralize, but oftentimes they'll only work with certain different companies, and they'll almost always work with, like, you know, Final Cut, or with Adobe Premiere. Those seem to be kind of the two the two big ones. And so back when I bought Pluralize, there really wasn't anything else. Now I know there's a couple other things on the market, and they're still expensive. But Pluralize is just super easy to me. As a matter of fact, I'm amazed that it hears some of the things that it hears sometimes and figures it out. But again, it's not for everybody. I'm just saying, if you're a video editor, or you're really interested in trying to become a video editor, and syncing is something that you deal with on a regular basis, Pluralize pays for itself in no time. So everybody, take care. I hope that helped you a lot. I will be posting this in the VIP group, in the masterclass group, so you can watch this and get more information out of it. But I would love to see you making some videos with each other or with your friends or whatever it might be, and see what you can do, okay? So everybody take care, stay positive through all of this. Hopefully we're coming to an end to this COVID stuff and we can get back out again and do our thing. So is there an instruction on connecting an amp to that software? Well, you need an audio interface. What I would recommend, if you're part of the masterclass, you have access to home recording, one of the masterclasses I did, I would strongly recommend that you watch that home recording masterclass if you're part of that larger masterclass thing.